Hey guys, I decided to jump right back on in here. The last video went actually close to an hour. Sorry about that. I try to keep this down, but I just kind of get carried away, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, I flipped this to check for any more balance issues, and this hip may be questionable, but I mean, it seems to look okay. I don't know if I should broaden it out a little bit or just add some lines to sort of make it look as uh, toned as the other one, the opposite one, and then see if that would help or not. But most of this video is going to be me going in and working with the shade layers, and let's see if that's even anything remotely cool. But I think I am going to bring this out just a bit. This might be me just being picky. This may be a lot of things that other people would just leave and continue on, soldier on as it will. But you know, I'm just kind of like, eh. If it's once it's in my mind, I can't unsee it. So. And it's you know, getting balance is tricky enough when it should be perfectly balanced. It's even more tricky when you're looking at a slightly turned character, and you know that there should be some inconsistency in the balance, a little bit, but how much is almost subjective. You know, I guess that's why they call it art and not necessarily science. I think I talked about this a while ago, where I've seen photos of people that looked off. Like, you go, what? Like, you don't really think about it because it's a photo. It's obviously not, quote, incorrect. There are proportions, or if you were to draw it, if you were to draw whatever it is they're doing as a line drawing, people would go, oh, you fucked up. But it's actually a photo, you know. So it's not fucked up. That's probably as much as I'm comfortable with fucking with that. I think that does look a little more proportional in that light, so I'm going to go ahead and flip her back. Okay. I'm going to go in and get a like a good. Hey, give me another layer. Thanks. Just going to go in and do some shading. I've kind of varied up all like how I do shading and stuff like that, and I'm going to work with. Sometimes with her, I just work with browns because she's just, you know, human tones and stuff like that. But I'm not really sure. I may probably go with like a blue, or I use purple a lot, just because it goes well with like just about everything. So just go in here. I work with about 20% flow on this, and on the erasing side I'll work with about 10, and I'll go down, and lately I've been really going in and like super smoothing the shading, so it's not quite so much of a cell shaded look. That may or may not be good, I don't know. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and see if I should set that. If I set that to multiply, well, maybe I should go ahead and do that. Let's see. It's going to darken everything, that's for sure. Drop those out. Sometimes I use shading just to show the shape of something, like the fact that her arm is round. You know, that shadow might not be 100% accurate as it would be in real life, but it works with the mind to show that it's a shape and it's going into the background, and there it goes. I'm actually going to set this back to normal, and while I'm doing this, oops, that's set to darken. What the hell? There we go. That's what I'm talking about. So yeah, I'll go in and do the, I'll do all this kind of shading, and then I'll go in and really lighten and tweak and mess with some new areas, and I don't know if I've really done that in a video quite yet. I've done a lot of videos, not a lot I should say, but I've done a few work videos for Patreon. And they usually have adult stuff in them, which is why I don't share them here on YouTube usually. So, but I have a tier system, and I have basically to get access to like the finished comics and everything else. You pay $6 to just get access to the stuff I post to the blog. You can just get you just pay $1. And I have another tier called, I call it the steering committee, and it's you pay $12, and so you're paying twice as much as people who normally just get everything finished, and sometimes you get to vote on upcoming projects, which one I'm going to work on next, and I don't do that quite enough, I think, to justify the tier. So whenever I do work videos, I will give those to the $12 tiers. So because I'm sharing this one on YouTube basically for free, I'm probably going to share the when I take off her bikini and do the naked version. I'm probably going to share that with the $12 tiers. And then the $50 tier is the sketch commission stuff, which is basically a commission sketch. It's like I can do like 3-ish characters within reason. You know, I would have to say within reason, and because some people like to bombard you with details, 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 and the whole purpose of it is to just do. To just sort of get a warm-up sketch out of the way for the day. Just, okay, I'll spend like the first hour and a half to 2 hours doing a little sketchy poo of something, and it's not supposed to be like, here's a commission that's going to take just half the day. It's going to be hours of work. It's going to have changes and corrections and stuff like that, it just can't happen. Because it's just designed to be a warm-up, And I decided to go ahead and sell those to people who were interested in getting a warm-up, not the full commission experience, not the make sure, his every pube is drawn perfectly to my satisfaction, that kind of a thing. But just here's a sketch of your character doing something that you asked me to do. It was a good way to start my day, and now I'm ready to do what I got to do for the rest of the day. I'm going to try to keep this video to half an hour, but I'll probably get all wrapped up in this shading and could take a little bit longer. Like I'm going to go in here and sort of make these areas a little more hair-like. This is supposed to be kind of wet hair, but I still hate drawing really ultra straight hair. Like, it's not my favorite, so yeah, I think I'm not going to leave that glossy. I'm going to just leave that dark there. Those are pretty dark lines. I think I'll leave that sketch layer off right now while I do this. Someone asked me what I thought about Brexit the other day. I honestly don't have any context for it. So like everything else, it doesn't really matter whether Britain leaves the EU or whatever. What matters is why and what they do with it now that they have it. You know, if they build a freer society as a result of shirking European regulations, then it'd be good. If they just decide to become nationalistic about it and say, well, we don't want you Europeans telling us what to do, we'll violate our own rights with our own British laws, then it's going to suck. And so I could really, not really, I guess I don't really have a dog in the fight, but it is interesting to watch from a social standpoint. I think people get wrapped up too much in their team, their political team, and then they lose sight of the actual ramifications and what actually is going to happen, or what's important to human life. Arm at this angle is always funny because whenever I have this debate about, since I do cell shading, which is a very simple kind of shading, I always have this debate about, should I put the shadow here because the light source is kind of over here, or should I put the shadow here because the light source is also kind of up here? And because if you put it on both sides, it's going to look weird. it's going to look like you're just kind of frosting the character with shading, which I always try to avoid. So what I do is I usually defer to whatever side is pointing down, or whatever side is like furthest from the viewer in some cases, or whichever side has a shadow cast on it, in which case you can kind of have contradicting little shadows and whatnot. But, so that's, I defer to that for that side there. Phone's going nuts. See, if I kind of frost it, it doesn't quite look, I think, quite right. So oh, Christ, Christ, Christ. Well, let me get that on my phone, because there we go. The way this text crap works, if I don't address it soon, it's gonna, there we go. It's gonna pop up again. Yeah, there we go. More buzz buzz. Come on, get bigger. There we go. It's also good to remember when you're drawing boobs or whatever, they're very rarely mashed together unless they're wearing clothing that specifically does that to them. Even in really large-chested women, they tend to kind of just lay off to the side of each other, away from each other. So, but it is kind of a tricky area to shade, because you kind of want to cast a shadow with them, and sometimes it looks right, and sometimes it looks like, what the fuck are you doing? Glimpse here. Meh. Jesus Christ. Hold on, guys. Let me put a little. There we go. I suppose I could turn that off, where it sends text to my computer, but more often than not, it's kind of useful to just be able to type. because typing with tablet and phone keyboards is strictly out of necessity, or as some people say, strictly from hunger. You know, you wouldn't need it unless you wouldn't use it unless you absolutely needed it and you had no alternative. And I'm on my computer a lot because this is what I do. Alright, let's shape the tummy. Oh, Christ. Probably soften these lines up even more as I go, as I finish this all this shading. I thought about like time lapsing some of this stuff, but because I've seen other artists, they will do time lapses, and the problem with time lapses is, well, one, you can't really, you have to kind of dub in. If you want to say anything, you have to kind of talk about it later after you're done. But also, people can't really follow what you're doing. You know, you're just kind of zooming along, and no one can really. I wonder how. I wonder how heavily I can do this. Let's see. Probably pretty heavily. And we can come down here. This is kind of where you just, you know, it's like sketching except you're shading. And all this crap will be tightened up later. But right now, I just want to get coverage. And there'll also be more than one shade layer. There'll probably be 3. Lately, I've been kind of adding a 3rd layer to just sort of make a little bit more, to give things a little bit more depth. Little subtle things that most people probably wouldn't recognize at a glance. And few pictures really ever need it. Now her belly looks pretty soft compared to the way she was when she was young. Sometimes when you're drawing, never be afraid to recognize that you want to render something, that you will have a phase where you can render it. If it may be better just to render with shadows as opposed to putting pencil lines to it or something like that. Always know where cloth is under tension. This is an area where okay. Let's see if I can shape this a little bit more. Okay. Okay. Actually, let's take a look at that. I'm going to thin that out. There we go. Okay. I'm wondering if I should go ahead and do the background or if I should, because it's gonna kind of be boring to sit here and watch me do the background, because it's just going to be like all this panel here with like a line like this and then a little silhouette or whatever. So probably what I want to do is go ahead and move on into the second shade layer here and just work on her for now. And I may skip the working with the background part because, and then just kind of explain something I did, you know, later on when I show it. Go. And I also kind of want to break up these vids, let them sit before I post a sequel, so that, you know, I can, when I'm talking into it, I can answer any questions people have, and, you know, like what's with lovely pets chapter whatever, which one guy asked in a prior video. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I've never done lovely pets, so I don't know. Okay. I also love, well, I'm being sarcastic, obviously, but just there's kind of that weird. It's super fucking lazy the way some people interact with others on the internet. I don't know if they do it on purpose because they're just being little shits or what, but when someone, like, if someone has a real question, you know, explain the question. When someone says something like, "What's with blah blah blah," and you're like, "Well, that's not really a question. I don't know what you're, what about what you're asking about? Is it the style? Is it the subject matter? Is it what is it you're asking? What's up with blah? It's kind of like we're not sitting in a park having a beer together, soaking up rays, and I know exactly what it is you're talking about, But I think there's I don't want to say an IQ matter in going on there, but you know, I don't know. I try to be as fully articulate and conversational as I can be when I ask a perfect stranger a question. Don't make any assumptions about what they already know, or that you're their buddy and you're just being like, "Hey, what up?" So maybe that guy will find out what's with, quote, blah, 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 lovely pets, blah, blah, blah. Maybe someday he will. Maybe he'll be on his deathbed on the ventilator, and oh, Jesus, finally, the creator of Lovely Pets, whoever that is, I've never heard of it, will show up and just be like, hey, here's what's with. I decided to do this. That's what's with. And then he'll walk away, and the guy will be stunned and unable to speak, and he'll kind of reach out from his bed, and then you'll just hear the EKG will just flatline, and then he'll pass out, and he'll die, and that'll be it. I am really glad I got away from like flat cell shading because I can do little areas like that um, and just sort of add just sort of a gradient, instead of straight up hard edge, solid shading, which is why I use a softer brush now for it anyway, instead of a straight hard brush. Little shadow here where the clothes pinch the skin in a little bit. Sometimes just adding a little band of shading on a second layer or even a third layer can add a little bit of, neat little bit of depth. But otherwise, you might not notice if it's not there, but your subconscious mind probably would notice that it is there. And if it was missing, there might be something off about the picture, but you wouldn't be able to place your finger on it. Okay. All right. Go ahead and do that. So fuck it. Work with this string later, or shit right now. I wish I could play some music to kind of accompany this, but I did that with one of my first videos, and I got a little tiny little tisk from YouTube because they recognized it, even though it was classical music, which is public domain. The performance itself, almost every performance of classical music, is the property of the people who actually did it, which I understand. And they didn't take the video down. But it was one of those things where it's like, damn, I better not risk it, because so I have to kind of go with this sort of silence. And unfortunately, if I don't have anything to say at the particular moment, the video is going to kind of drag out here. Let's see, seams. Okay. Okay, you can kind of see what the second layer does, and now I'm trying to think if I even need it. I'll probably do a third layer just for the little tiny bits, like where there's a lot of curvature. Here, down here, here. Things that kind of disappear behind things. Could use probably a little extra depth. Being kind of fast and loose with it here. Probably barely noticed that in the picture itself, so. Okay. A little bit, little tiny little areas. Okay. Now, what I want to do is, I want to see about really softening this up. I'll take my brush down to flow my eraser down to flow percentage 1. And bring my brush down to the same level just in case. And I will go in and just really kind of, whoops, god damn it. I will go in and really just fuck up. Okay. Just go in and kind of really lighten these edges up here so it's a little bit of a, not so much of a hard edge. Whoops. Always remember, if you start this shade layer and you realize that what you've done is probably too light or too dark, you can always go into like level adjustment and or lightness darkness adjustment in your adjustment settings, brightness, contrast, all that jazz, and you can just sort of adjust until it looks kind of how you want it. And then whatever new color you end up with, just sort of grab it with the dropper and resume. I do this with fur all the time. I don't know how it's going to make skin look, but I think everything else is okay. Okay, shading is done. Hold on. Photoshop gets quirky sometimes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and close this video out here. I'm going to go ahead and throw on shading in the background pieces here, and then when I come back, I'll kind of explain what I did. I'm going to upload these two videos. I'm going to let them sit there. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask them, I guess, in the comment section, and whatever next video I do, I will do my best to answer them. And I appreciate you guys watching, and take care. Bye-bye.